Matt, what is your initial take of this situation with Ohio State?
Where to begin? I think the first thing we have to say, and let's just piggyback on what Ryan was saying about Chip Kelly. Like, what a disaster that was for Chip Kelly and Ryan Day's, big move to cede the playing calling over to him. Like, what happened to Chip Kelly? Like, he's in the witness protection program. Like that was just so shocking to watch. And here's the thing that gets me, and this is, I think, Ohio State and Ryan Day's number one tactical misstep against Michigan. Not to be too brutal to Ryan Day, because this is really a pretty universal thing in football, but like, this was a situation which called for it. Mark, how many times do we say at some point in a football season, why doesn't this team run the hurry up offense all the time? I am waiting for an elite coach and staff to run a hurry up offense. Not against Akron, but in a big game where you have the dudes, you have the receivers, you have the speed edge on the perimeter. You should be running no huddle all the time. Forget the run game. There was a game, an NFL game. Remember the 2002 Raiders with Rich Gannon? Rich Gannon threw like 65 passes against the Steelers, and I think it was a Sunday night game. And it's not as though he was flinging the ball 20 yards down the field all the time, but like, we're just going to throw, and you have to stop us, right? And fans get into, well, first at USC, it's run the damn ball, and Lincoln Riley should have run the ball more in spots. But fans get really wrapped up in run pass balance. Like, you have to have balance. You know what? Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have the hammer, and you should just keep pounding at it. And the hammer is not the run game, it's the pass game. And that's what Ohio State should have been doing. Ohio State should have been just flinging the ball around the yard, should have been going up tempo and daring Michigan's corners to keep up. And it's no accident. It's no weird, isolated, freak occurrence that Ohio State's one touchdown against Michigan was in a hurry-up offense in a 2-minute drill. And Chip Kelly stopped coaching the game like it was 1972 and it was Woody versus Bo. And he just, we're just going to fling it down the field. Steve Spurrier, we're going to pitch it around the ballpark. That's how Ohio State should have been playing this game. But Ryan Day, like his other brother coaches, did not have the foresight and the wisdom to say, we need to play this game on an Autobahn. We need to play this game on a motor speedway, not in a pig pen. This is not 1972. We need to be, we have a Ferrari. We need to drive it on the open road. Coaches don't play games like that, but that was obviously the tactic that Ohio State needed to bring to the table against Michigan. So that's where I start. That was the biggest, most obvious misstep that Ryan Day made.
And if I could tack on to that, exactly. When you say 1972, that's what I thought I was watching. And that was processing in my mind as the game wore on. I was expecting Ohio State to try to kick it into gear. And as you mentioned, the only time they did is when they were forced to by the clock. Only having 90 seconds left in the first half, they started moving. And what they do? They scored a touchdown. And you would think, that would click in. Oh, why don't we try this again? This is kind of like why we recruited all these 5-star wide receivers and everything. And they have maybe the best defensive line in the country. And we've got our 2 best offensive linemen injured for the season. Maybe we need to play away from that. And then because it looked like 1972, I don't want to sound like Nostradamus because I did not pick Michigan to win this game. But when I saw that 20 points, I jumped immediately because I knew that was way too much. Yeah. But I did give a formula for how they would win this game. I said, if they win this game and I give them more than a puncher's chance, these are the key. I went down the line and I even went to the punting advantage and the place kicking advantage. And as you saw the final 10 minutes of that game play out, it was like 1972. Ohio State never flipped the field. They played down near Ohio State's goal line for the last 10 minutes, and they could never flip the field because once Michigan hit a 68-yard punt and Ohio State could only return it with a 30-yard punt, and the Michigan kicker, who I put on my Football Writers Association first team All-America selection before the game, hits a 53-yarder. Ohio State's kicker, and I don't know if this is the white-knuckledness, infiltrating down all the way to the kicker, but 14 for 14, under 40 yards going into that game, and he misses 2 chip shots. Everyone was white knuckling it on this afternoon, but the play calling was atrocious. And I am a traditionalist to say, and you hit the key term, most of the time you need balance. Yes, overall over the course of a season to be a really good offense.
Yes.
But there are matchups to be
considered. Coach the game in front of you, not on a general theoretical level.
Yes, at the end of the season, yes, we're not going to see a national championship team that throws the ball 82% of the time. But that game called for throwing it 7 out of every 10 plays at least.
And you know what? I have the sense that Ryan Day went into this game thinking, we have to make this game manageable for Will Howard. Let's not give too much responsibility to him. I think that Ryan Day had that thought process, and obviously he and Chip Kelly, when they consulted on the offensive game plan, it sure seems to me that was their thought process in more words or less. But what they didn't really consider was, if you go to a hurry-up, up-tempo offense, what does that do to help Will Howard? Takes away the Michigan pass rush, number one, and two, and we say this all the time with hurry-up offenses, the quarterback is no longer thinking. It's just instinctive. It's just react, and boom, get it out. You reduce the mental burden on a quarterback when you go up-tempo. And Ryan Day and Chip Kelly never seemed to say, they wanted the game manageable for Will Howard, but they thought about it in one very limited way, and it turned out to be the wrong way. Run the ball, let's not have him throw, let's not take many risks. That was exactly the opposite way to think about it. It's let's throw more, but let's do it with tempo to take away the Michigan pass rush and make the game mentally easier for Will Howard to process. So they just thought about this game all wrong. And Ryan Day brought in Chip Kelly to add a voice in the room, to add a hotbed of wisdom that neither of them, this is 0 for 2. Neither of them arrived at the right game plan to begin with, and neither of them made the right adjustments at halftime. Like how can two guys with so much skin in the game and so much experience in big games, at big programs, and big situations, how can neither one of them figure this thing out? I am astounded.
And to look at it this way as well, Ryan Day has reluctantly relinquished the play calling, and he's been questioned about it for, I would say, at least the last 3 years. And he's always pushed it off. That's something that we're looking at it, but I still enjoy it. And then when they finally pried it out of his hands this past offseason, with first Bill O'Brien as the first selection, then Chip Kelly, then the rhetoric became, this is going to be better for the program. I get to, drop in on the special teams during practice and look at the defense and be more of a CEO. And obviously their responsibilities as head football coaches have become so complex at this point that my thought was, okay, they ponied up all this money to get one of the best in the business, Chip Kelly. Now Ryan Day can, and in that situation where he called double timeouts with about a minute or 2 minutes left in the game, those are the type of mistakes that were supposed to be avoided, because Ryan Day's not processing what plays he needs to call when they get the ball back. No, he's supposed to be managing the game.
Absolutely. Let's talk about, there's so many other things we need to get to. One is flag planting. When did this become the United effing Nations? When did this become, like a crisis, a geopolitical crisis, such that you need to have the Camp David peace accords, and you have to have this tense international standoff, and if you make the wrong move, we're going to launch missiles into your backyard. Holy hell. You're standing on a piece of AstroTurf that happens to be painted. Like, this is such a nothing burger, and yet we had this massive scene. I just don't understand this. Like, if you don't want the opposing team to stand on your logo, you win the game. Okay, like, the other team won. We won, we shot the baby gun. You lost, you ate the applesauce. I mean, you win, you lose. Some people celebrate, some people go to the locker room angry. Like, that's sports. Why is there this like, is this 1854 and we're settling American territories? Like, this is just absolutely insane. And this happened repeatedly. This happened in Florida State. It happened, there was a brawl in North Carolina State, North Carolina. I mean, it's absolutely bonkers. And like, we don't need a police presence. You don't see policemen on the field when baseball teams get into a brawl. Like, this is just athletes settling scores. I don't see what the big security issue is. I mean, if there are some idiot fans who want to go onto the field and get wrapped up in a melee between, grown, hulking young men in helmets with pads, like, you do that at your own risk. I just don't get the freak out about flag planting. What an absolute disgrace, and what an over-the-top reaction by, Ohio State and by the security forces in Columbus.
So we've got Super Chat coming in. Q's number 44 is happy that I've ranked Syracuse at number 23, finally in the rankings. 9-3, beat Miami on Saturday. Okay, to the flagging, the flag planting. I will say it this way. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I just think you're looking for trouble. You're looking for an incident. You're looking for a scene when you do that on another team's field. And I know the whole deal is you own their field. You own them. I think that's stupid. And what was Purdue going to have a flag planted at their 50-yard line every game this season? Like, does everybody own their field? So like, while I think that's stupid, like, I'm not targeting Michigan. A lot of people thought I was targeting Michigan. I made it very clear. I think that's a dumb practice, whoever does it. But that's, and then I resorted to a few name callings. Those guys are 20 years old. There are worse things that can be done. Like, when I call them names and just say, that's immature and childish, I mean it in the very best way, in regards to, there are worse things that they could be involved in as 20-year-olds. I don't agree with it. I think that they should act better, but they're 20 years old. So that's fine. It's not the end of the world. And if there's some retaliation against it, number one, yes, it's almost like running up the score. If you don't want somebody to plant the flag at your field, you should have been defending it for the last 4 hours. But at the same time, I can also understand that pushback. I don't want to see this scene on my field, on our field, and therefore we're going to do something about it. I thought Steve Sarkisian was very wise in heading that off at the pass and dealing with that even before the game, to let his players know, we're not doing that. And there's probably something officially going to be done about it. And that's too bad, because I, like you, would like it to be less policed and just allow guys to celebrate and do what they want. But I always thought, just like we formally do in baseball games, you brought up baseball, get in lines and shake hands and actually have an interaction after the game. There are players on those two sides of any of these rivalry games that some of them played it in California and New Jersey, so they don't know each other. But there are many players that played in high school together or against each other and know each other. And it's a small world, especially with social media now, and there's certain guys, shoot, at the same time I saw a social media post while this melee was going on, there were a handful of Ohio State and Michigan players that got together, and they were on their knees praying. So, yeah, it wasn't pretty. It was not a good look for the sport.
I just want to add one thing. Like, if someone plants a flag on your 17-yard line as opposed to your 50-yard line, like, are we talking about this, right? Are we talking about this if someone plants a flag on your 17-yard line or your 12-yard line or your 31-yard line. No, you're just going to be upset for planting the flag in the middle of the field. Like that, to me, illustrates the insanity and the idiocy of all this. Like, it's not worth an ounce of energy. You beat me on the field, put your flag on the 1, on the 8, on the 14, on the 40. Like, this is just nothing. It's nothing.
Yeah, there was a day and time in which Terrell Owens scored a couple touchdowns against the Dallas Cowboys and was taken out by a Dallas defensive back.
Because he stood on the star at Texas Stadium as opposed to the 39 or the 27 or the 16. Just.
So there we are. In perusing some of the national shows, which I often say on here when people ask me what I watch and what I look at, I really don't. But they kept being thrown in my face as I was doing my work here on YouTube, and I was curious to hear from Joel Klatt and Colin Cowherd. And they, of course, were addressing the Ohio State situation. We've already done that, and we could talk about it for 10 hours. But I think unless you have anything else to add, we can move on. They were also addressing, go ahead, Matt.
I would just say I wrote at Trojans Wire today. Look, I think Lincoln Riley is staying at USC, but I think Ryan Day, if he's going to stay, and I don't know I don't know. I'm leaning toward he's got to be gone, but I know that the buyout is huge, and Ohio State has to refuel the NIL tank, and it might not be willing to pay the Ryan Day buyout. So I don't know. I'm leaning slightly toward Ryan Day being gone. But even if let's just take the hypothetical that Ryan Day does stay for 2025, Chip Kelly cannot be his offensive coordinator next year. After that, Chip Kelly has to be the guy who gets kicked out. I think Lincoln Riley will be coaching USC. I think it's highly unlikely Lincoln Riley would leave anywhere for next year. I think he wants to figure this thing out at USC. But I'm just saying this from Ryan Day's point of view. If I'm Ryan Day, I boot Chip Kelly and I place a call to Los Angeles, California. I have to make that call. I'm not saying that Lincoln Riley would say yes, but I have to make that call. And USC fans who, they want Lincoln Riley gone right now, but USC fans would say this much about Ohio State. Ohio State did not throw the ball nearly enough against Michigan. Well, if you have Lincoln Riley, he would throw the ball. He would throw the ball against Michigan's corners, and he would be a definite upgrade from Chip Kelly. So again, I'm not making any predictions, folks. All right, let's be very clear. Not making any predictions. But if Ryan Day wants to make a move to save his rear end, placing a call and at least having a conversation with Lincoln Riley's agent would not be the worst thing he could do. It would not be the worst place to start.
So I know that, you're not, and I'm not within the brain trust at Ohio State to make the decision of weighing Ryan Day's consistent winning versus letting down in the big games versus the buyout versus all these various factors. And then who are they going to get? Because in talking to Ohio State fans and knowing Ohio State fans, they believe 90% of them that they're entitled to 11-1. Like a monkey could be on the sidelines and they can't conceive that they could hire a different coach and suddenly start going 8-4, 9-3. Like, it's not automatic that they just think that that's the floor. You go 11-1 just with anybody on the sidelines, but that's not necessarily the case. You can. And I'm not defending Ryan Day mismanaging that game and mismanaging this rivalry, but I'm just stating it's not as easy as it appears to be.
That's true. I would only say this was the most John Cooper-like loss in Ryan Day's Ohio State tenure, without question.
So what would be your threshold for a firing? Is there one, or is he back regardless? If you're running the show and you're not having to contemplate the money situation.
If money's no object, I think, okay, if I'm Ohio State's athletic director, I go get Mike Vrabel. I think that would be an upgrade over Ryan Day right there. So that would be my move. And I would also try to get Lincoln Riley as Mike Vrabel's offensive coordinator. if I'm Ohio State's AD, that would be my number one ideal goal. Now, what the plan B would be, I don't know. But obviously, with the head coach, you have to have the agreement in place before you make any other move. So, like, I would be talking to Mike Vrabel back channel right now. Some people have said Marcus Freeman. If Ryan Day is fired, Notre Dame did not look great against USC. And not to take anything away from Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman, like they got the job done, 11-1. It's a very good season. Freeman's done a very good job. Obviously, kept that team together, coached the team better after the Northern Illinois debacle. But Notre Dame has not played elite teams, and like we saw against USC, that secondary is no longer playing Army and Navy. USC had real athletes, and that was a sticky, thorny game for Notre Dame, and it does not bode well for the Irish in the playoff against a team that's not going to make nearly as many mistakes as USC did. So I need to see Marcus Freeman win at least one, if not two playoff games to think that he can take over at Ohio State and have that program rocking and rolling. It's a little too early yet for Freeman, but I think Vrabel, who is, with his NFL experience, player development, and I think that, Vrabel's Tennessee Titans teams, you could call them a lot of things. They were never soft. And Ohio State being the bigger, tougher team against Michigan, like that would be a very attractive selling point if I'm Ohio State's AD. So that's how I'd play it. But obviously we'll see what Ohio State's actual AD does. And I don't know what's going to happen.